Let us pray. Dear God, author of all wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, we ask thy guidance in order that truth and justice may prevail in all our judgments. Amen.
Introduction of visitors. Presenting petitions.
Overbar.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to present a petition on behalf of 46 Albertans who are objecting to, who are opposed to Bill 204, the Dangerous Dogs Amendment Act. Their specific opposition is related to the definition of dangerous dogs, and their contention is that it should be on the basis of behavior rather than specific breed.
Reading and receiving petitions. Presenting reports by standing and special committees. Notices of motions. Introduction of bills.
Edmonton Avonmore.
I beg leave to introduce today Bill 316, Medical Profession Amendment Act. It would require that a medical practitioner who has reasonable and probable grounds to believe that a colleague is sexually assaulting a patient report those concerns to the college.
The honourable member for Edmonton Avonmore has moved first reading to Bill 316, Medical Profession Amendment Act. Those in favor of first reading, please say aye. Opposed, please say no. Carried.
Bill number 316, Medical Profession Amendment Act, introduced by the honourable member, Ms. M. Lang, is now read a first time. Tabling returns and reports.
Honourable the Attorney General.
Sure, I'd like to table the annual report for the Public Service Employee Relations Board.
Thank you. Minister of Health.
I'm pleased to file with the Legislative Assembly the March 92 progress report of the Nursing Job Enhancement Advisory Committee.
Thank you.
Special guests.
Education.
Speaker, members of the Legislative Assembly have been visited today by approximately 200 students and parents and teachers representing the the Association of Independent Schools and Colleges of Alberta. They've traveled from quite a long distance, many of them from as far away as Medicine Hat and Grand Prairie, to bring to, I believe, many of the members who they've been able to meet with over this morning and this noon hour, to tell us about the good results that are being achieved by children in the independent schools of the province. They've also brought us up to date on their very positive initiative, the Choices for Children campaign. Many of them have joined us in the both galleries today, Mr. Speaker. They're joined by their president, Mr. Jim Souter. I'd ask them all to rise and to receive a very warm welcome from all members of the Assembly.
Edmonton Avonmore, followed by the Minister of Health and Lesser Slave Lake.
Mr. Speaker, it gives me great pleasure today to introduce to you 26 students from J.H. Picard School, which is a French immersion school located in the beautiful constituency of Edmonton Avonmore. They are accompanied by their teacher, Mr. Daniel Blay and Mrs. Jan Taylor. They are seated in the visitors gallery, and I would ask that they please rise and receive the warm welcome of this assembly.
Oh, I see. Second edition. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, I would also like to introduce to you 41 students from J. Percy Page High School, also in the constituency of beautiful Edmonton Avonmore. They are accompanied by their teachers, Mr. Rick Long and Mrs. Paula Stein. I wouldn't hazard a guess as to where they are seated, but I would ask that they rise and receive a warm welcome of this assembly.
Minister of Health, followed by Athabasca Laklabish.
Speaker, seated in the members' gallery are 23 visitors from the Linwood School. They are accompanied by the teacher, Mrs. Lorraine Overend, and by parents and helpers whose help is so vital to education in this province, Mrs. Irene Stein, Mrs. Kathy Ross, Mrs. Marjorie Monsma, and Mrs. Arlene Bashkiel. I'd ask them to rise and receive a very warm welcome from the members.
Actually, Lesser Slave Lake.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to introduce two individuals, two young men who came to see me today, and they're from Slave Lake, and both are actually from Slave Lake, Sean Hill and Brad Reinsch, and I'd ask that they rise and receive the warm welcome of this assembly. They're from the St. John's School.
Ministerial statements. Oral question period.
Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday I showed that for every company this government backed with ad hoc help that succeeded, another 6 the government backed ended up in failure. It shows, Mr. Speaker, that ministers across the way sitting around the cabinet table are frankly lousy at picking winners. Now, Mr. Speaker, we know why, because most often they're helping their political friends. But, Mr. Speaker, we can also tell if such ad hoc spending is working by how much of the money comes back to taxpayers. For every tax dollar put at risk under the student loan program that the minister talked about, the province got back 91 cents. For under the Farm Credit Stability Act, Mr. Speaker, they got back 99.4 cents. That's a good record, Mr. Speaker. But contrast that with what the cabinet did, Mr. Speaker. For every tax dollar put at risk, with cabinet handouts to business, the government got back 2 cents. No. That's performance, Mr. Speaker. That's performance. My question to the Minister of Economic Development and Trade: how can the minister continue to justify this dismal record to the taxpayers of Alberta who are footing for the bill for this government gambling in the private sector?
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, yesterday I did not have the benefit of the New Democratic Party's news release, and I'm delighted that I do have the benefit of it today, because the figures that he has recited to this House, as he has done on a consistent basis, are very inaccurate, in fact, very untruthful. Because if one looks at the record as to what they released to the media yesterday, he includes the credit union assistance of some $563 million, the principal group, and I can go through a long list of companies whereby we did not involve ourselves because of a business transaction, but we involved ourselves because of our social conscience and our concern for the welfare of those individuals who had invested in those companies. We had no obligation, but we did so, Mr. Speaker, recognizing again the importance that they play to the province. The honourable member also highlights a number of investments that we don't know whether there will be any loss whatsoever on. I indicate to the honourable member again, all this information is highlighted in public accounts. We indicate within our budgetary projections the actual losses that we feel are going to occur. The provincial treasurer might wish to supplement my answer because he has the direct responsibility as it relates to public accounts, but it's very misleading for the honourable member to highlight only those areas that he feels will justify his cause. I'm delighted to see now that he does have a recognition. He does have a recognition that the percentage losses are greater in other areas than what they have been whereby we've been involved with the business community.
Well, to the Minister of Economic Development and Trade, no matter how they look at it, they've wasted $1.6 billion of taxpayers' money, Mr. Speaker. $1.6 billion. And secondly, to this minister, Mr. Speaker, when they get behind closed doors of the cabinet, they have almost inevitably lost money to the taxpayers' money, 2 cents on the dollar. And I want to ask the minister, why doesn't he come clean and justify this? How can he continue to justify this abysmal failure of the government behind closed doors doing this, Mr. Speaker?
Mr. Speaker, we have come clean, unlike the Honourable Leader of the New Democratic Party, which persists in offering misleading information, and I highlighted a number of the areas where he is in error. I also indicate to the Honourable Member, you asked for results. The results are within the economic activity of this province, whereby we see job creation within this province, whereby every other area within North America is experiencing job losses. Mr. Speaker, we want to have a climate that is conducive to business investment so that we can create meaningful jobs for the young people within this province, and it's an area that we're going to continue through with, as was done in our budgetary projections, indicating we're going to have some 15,000 new jobs created within this fiscal year.
If that's as accurate as the previous treasurer's forecast, forget it, Mr. Speaker. He's never right. Mr. Speaker, I'm asking if you want to talk about job loss. We are facing a recession. The money to Maria's, General Systems, Alberta Terminals, I could go on and on. There's 36 of them. Stop wandering around, Mr. Speaker, and answer the question. How can this minister have the nerve to stand in this assembly and say that this program is working when they get behind closed doors and make the mistakes that they are?
Mr. Speaker, we, some months ago, as I indicated yesterday to the Leader of the Official Opposition, highlighted the areas that we had been involved, highlighted a number of the successes that we have had. And I'm glad that the Honourable Member at least will deal in a somewhat rational sense, whereby he highlighted the thousands of individuals that we supported through the Farm Credit Stability Program. We have also highlighted the thousands of small businesses that we have helped with interest shielding. Mr. Speaker, it is a totally inaccurate presentation on behalf of the Leader of the New Democratic Party to suggest that those losses have been sustained. As I indicated to him, the larger ones, we involved ourselves because of our commitment to the social welfare of this province, not because of any business commitment. But I should also indicate to him, if he looks at a number of our programs, such as they've criticized dealing with the export loan guarantee, which has a success rate greater than 95%, that has created thousands of jobs within this province so that we can take advantage of export opportunities. And Mr. Speaker, let me just reinforce what I indicated to the Leader yesterday. I'm more than happy to get into a detailed debate as it relates to our own budgetary estimates, as I know the provincial treasurer is.
Second main question, Leader of the Opposition, without Edmonton Kingsway. Let's have the question. Second.
That's right. They want to keep misleading the people. They're going to pay the price, Mr. Speaker. But I'll designate my second. The Treasurer's getting excited. He's in charge of losses. I can understand it. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to delegate my second question to the member for Edmonton Strathcona.
Edmonton Strathcona.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My questions are for the Premier. The Minister of Consumer and Corporate Affairs has claimed that the government has no responsibility for permitting bench insurance to defraud some 350 farmers of more than $1 million in premiums. This claim has been rendered totally incredible by information which has come to light that one of the victims, John Vandenborn, suspected his policy might be bogus in June of 1991 and asked the Alberta Insurance Council to investigate the possibility of a bogus policy, was then advised by an investigator from the AIC that everything was fine and that he should go ahead and renew his policy. To the Premier, given that the losses suffered by the victims between June of 1991, the date of this request for an investigation, and March 1992 would have been avoided had the Alberta Insurance Council done a full and proper investigation, how can the government maintain that the regulators share no responsibility in this matter?
Mr. Speaker, as Acting Minister of Consumer and Corporate Affairs, I'm more than glad to take the member's very detailed and complex question to the attention of the Minister as soon as he returns.
Mr. Speaker, I would again go to the Premier and ask him where, given the fact that Mr. Van Moore's information came to light at a meeting which was attended by Consumer and Corporate Affairs administrators who maintained that responsibility for compliance with the legislation is on the agents and not the Alberta Insurance Council, and explained that the Act provides no power for the AIC to monitor these activities. To the Premier, I submit that these explanations and the entire bench matter show that the Council serves no practical purpose. And I'd ask the Premier if he intends to dissolve this wasteful and useless body.
The member's considerable question deserves a considerable answer, and I will take the matter to the considerable minister.
But there are families that are in urgent need. Those families who have lost as a result of claims which are unanswered. The Mortons are about to lose their farm. The Diamonds are living out of their garage, and the department has taken the position that refund of premiums or claims is a political decision made by politicians. Will the Premier tell the Assembly when the government will take responsibility for its regulatory failure and reimburse the victims of the crime?
Mr. Speaker, the government shares the concerns of all Albertans with regard to this matter. The minister has spoken to this question several times in the past, and I again will bring the member for Strathcona's concerns to his attention, and I'm sure there will be an answer delivered to the members of this Assembly in due course.
Edmonton Glengarry, behalf of the Liberal Party.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, a serious incident occurred in these premises last Friday. That incident involves the allegation of an assault by certain Alberta citizens. Now a statement denies that assault. The matter, which was serious, has become even more serious. I believe that the effective operation of this Assembly is at risk. Will the Premier canvass? Question is to the Premier. Will the Premier canvass the party leaders to get agreement to have this Assembly call upon the Chief Justice of Alberta to investigate this issue? It's not a funny matter. This is not funny. This is not a joking matter. I'm asking for the Premier to call upon the Chief Justice of Alberta to investigate this incident involving the Speaker and certain media personnel, and to thereafter provide recommendations to the Assembly for appropriate action.
Mr. Speaker, I'm sure if the honourable member feels strongly, and obviously I take him at face value if he says that he does, feel there's a very serious matter, that our rules in the legislature over the many years of tradition dealing with matters like this point the way to proceed.
Mr. Speaker, our rules do not protect all of the people involved in this incident. There are rules that protect the Speaker. There should be rules that protect Alberta citizens. Will the Premier agree to call on the Chief Justice to look at this matter, to tell us what to do with this situation that is now an impasse?
Somebody tell me. Well, Mr. Speaker, I can't agree with the honourable member about the situation being at impasse. I would be concerned if any Alberta citizen has a problem and finds that a solution is not possible to them. And we would always try and find solutions. But I just urge the honourable member to look into the rules under which we conduct this legislature, and then he will find that there are ways for him to proceed.
Mr. Speaker, the Premier has indicated that he judges his cabinet members on the basis of performance. This issue is an issue of performance. And the Premier has a duty to this Assembly and to the people of Alberta, and particularly to those people that feel aggrieved. Does the Premier not feel that the Chief Justice could deal with this effectively, fairly, and quickly?
Mr. Speaker, as I pointed out to the honourable member, and I guess I'll do it for the third time, that if he merely uses the rules of the legislature, which are available and have been for hundreds of years to those of us who have participated in the British parliamentary system, there are ways in which to proceed. Now, one of them isn't grandstanding like the honourable member. If he is serious, and I take him at face value that he is, the rules provide for him to proceed.
Redwater Andrew, followed by Edmonton Calder.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Part of the attraction of privatization is that services to the public can be provided through the investment of private capital rather than through public funds. Mr. Speaker, a long-term privatization strategy could include measures such as the community bond concept that would increase the flow of private investment dollars to finance new business ventures entering market riches opened by the reduction of direct government involvement. Mr. Speaker, my question is to the Minister responsible for rural development. Is the community bond concept being considered as part of the local development initiative program?
Mr. Speaker, certainly the local development initiative that the member spoke of, for the refreshment of all members' memory perhaps, was an initiative that was carried by the previous Minister of Municipal Affairs to investigate local development initiatives with the community members themselves. And through that process, we received some very good information and some very good advice. One of the things that was highlighted in that discussion was a distinct willingness of communities to invest in their own communities, and spoke to us of the faith that they held in their communities and their ability to grow and develop. One of the issues they raised in that discussion was the lack of financial flexibility to perhaps achieve that investment. Community bonds is one vehicle that could provide that opportunity. There are others. We are exploring a number of opportunities for the communities and indeed with the communities. I should also just draw to the members' attention quickly, Mr. Speaker, the Alberta Community, or the Business Initiatives for Alberta Communities program that is available to communities now through economic development and trade.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Have the minister's officials been able to draw upon the expertise of other jurisdictions to prepare an assessment of the success of community bonds and their measures to minimize government's risk exposure?
Well, Mr. Speaker, we do have certainly some experience that we can draw on from other provinces. Manitoba and Saskatchewan have both implemented a type of community bond. However, I would say that most of the experience that we would draw on from those provinces would be in development and implementation, because in those provinces they've been in effect for about 1 and 2 years respectively. So obviously from that limiting time frame, the experience we would gain from them would be limited to those two processes. I would say that we certainly are discussing with people in those provinces how the bonds have worked to this point, and we'll be carrying on that discussion to ensure that if we introduce a financing vehicle in this province for communities for investment in their own communities, that it will have every chance of success, and that the communities would find it suit their purposes in their individual communities across this province. And I would just say that community development is...
Thank you. Edmonton Calder, followed by Calgary Northwest.
Mr. Speaker, a recent survey of wages and working conditions of Canada's daycare workers raises serious concerns for Alberta, which has the highest staff turnover rate in the country, as well as one of the lowest average wage levels, far below the national average. The Minister of Family and Social Services stated last year that he would leave the issue of wages up to the daycare operators to determine, but this is clearly not working, Mr. Speaker. So my questions are to the Minister. Given that low wages contribute to high staff turnover and results are that there is a lower quality of care for Alberta children, when will this Minister recognize the valuable service and take action to ensure that trained childcare workers receive a fair and decent wage?
Good idea.
Mr. Speaker, to the member for Edmonton-Calder, I would repeat my position again of last year, and that is to say that it is not the position of this government to determine what wages should be in the non-profit societies that are providing daycare, nor in the private sector. It's up to the societies, it's up to the private sector, and it's up to the parents to determine what those wages should be. But I might point out to the member, Mr. Speaker, that the survey would not have the opportunity of fully evaluating the impact of the recent changes to our daycare program here in Alberta. The member knows that we have introduced new training requirements. They're only being phased in at this time, and the member would realize that that obviously will have an impact on the salaries that are being paid.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the changes to that program never included wages, and we've got some of the lowest wages in all of the country. And I would expect that this minister should be concerned about that. And there's very little accountability when it comes to operating allowances, and even the Auditor General has raised concern. So I'd ask the minister, will this minister now take some action and tie all daycare operating funding to quality of care being provided and implement wage enhancement programs for trained childcare workers?
Great idea.
Mr. Speaker, there is exhaustive accountability within the system today as a result of a number of the changes that we've made. I would again, though, point out to the member what she doesn't describe in evaluating our daycare program here in Alberta compared to other provinces. What she fails to mention is that Alberta is the only province in Canada, Mr. Speaker, that's been able to meet the demand for daycare. We actually have a 23% vacancy rate in this province, Mr. Speaker. And I'd go on to say, Mr. Speaker, we could take the Ontario way. We could take the Ontario way, where the waiting list is 2 years long, Mr. Speaker. We could take the Ontario way, where they have just recently announced the closure of 800 subsidized spaces in Toronto. That's the Ontario way, Mr. Speaker. But no, Mr. Speaker, we're not going to take that process. We're going to continue to work in partnership with parents who helped us to develop our daycare reforms, in partnership with societies who helped us to develop those changes, in partnership with advocacy groups, Mr. Speaker, and we're going to continue to provide, I think, some of the best daycare available in Canada, and it's going to be available, Mr. Speaker, not like in other provinces.
Calgary Northwest.
Okay, my question today is to the Minister for Economic Development and Trade. Global Thermoelectric Power Systems Limited received interest-free loans from this government for a total of $3.7 million. That's now been converted to a 25% ownership stake in this company. Can the Minister explain to Albertans why this money would be loaned without a clearly defined repayment schedule?
Mr. Speaker, whenever we do involve ourselves in supporting any companies, we always do have a clear criteria as to why we do involve ourselves. And as it relates to Global Thermal, I look forward to having further discussions with the honourable member when my estimates do appear before this Legislative Assembly in the next few days.
I guess there must not have been a page in the briefing book explaining the answer for the Minister, but I'll try again in a different tack. Since this 25% equity is now reduced from $3.7 million to less than $750,000, how much have we lost so far, and how much are we likely to lose in this company?
Requires opinion. Mr. Speaker, unlike the honourable member opposite, I don't have a script to read from, and as I indicated to him, I'm more than happy, Mr. Speaker, to have a full discussion with the honourable member. As I indicated to him, in just a few short days, my estimates are before this Legislative Assembly, whereby we can underscore the economic initiatives that have resulted in this province being the strongest province and the strongest area in all of North America. And we're going to elaborate at that time as to why that is the case, so that we can deal with questions that the honourable member has presented.
Good answer. River. Order. Smoking? No smoking?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For some years now, we've had a mobile and portable section of road called the Watino Hill on Highway 49. As a matter of fact, sometimes it's been referred to as the Smoky River Bungee Jump. To the Minister of Transportation, could you please provide some insight to my constituents who use Highway 49 on a regular basis as to what the status of this road is, whether indeed there is any effort to change the route of the road, and perhaps some insight as to the developments that may be taking place.
Mr. Speaker, in short, it's moving. But it's not a very pleasant experience. A number of things have concerned us with the southeast approach of the bridge at Watino because of a major slide that is, in fact, continuing to move. We have been wanting to work on it for some time, as far back as in 1991. One of the difficulties we've been having is getting the farmers to agree to sale of what would be considered the new right-of-way in an area where the slide is not occurring, and we just had recently to go to expropriation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Could the Minister provide some insight as to what the schedule of development of this important section of road will be?
Oh, Mr. Speaker, in January we applied for the routing for expropriation. There were 5 farmers involved and the 5 objected, and as a result of that, an inquiry officer was appointed. The report from the inquiry officer has just been received. I've not even had a chance to read it, but it ruled in our favor, and we will be proceeding from there. That would mean, if we're fortunate, we would have access to the property by September or October, and we may be able to have, if we get close enough to that, to have a fall tender for work early in the spring of 1993, with the idea that the bulk of the work would be in 1993.
Avonmore.
My questions are to the Attorney General. Mr. Speaker, much attention has been focused on the sexual abuse of vulnerable clients by healthcare professionals. The College of Physicians and Surgeons Task Force recommended that the Attorney General initiate legislation which would require the appropriate regulatory body be immediately informed when charges are laid against a physician or healthcare professional. Will the Attorney General now commit to reviewing this report with the view of bringing forward such legislation?
Sure. Mr. Speaker, I believe the final report is out in June relating to this issue, and I'd be delighted to receive the report and take those considerations at hand.
Okay. My second question is to the Chair of the Professions and Occupations Council. Recently, a self-styled psychologist was convicted of sexually assaulting a vulnerable young client. This trial points to the need to protect the public from unscrupulous and unethical healthcare professionals. Will the Chair commit the Professions and Occupations Council to looking into these matters and not simply dismissing them as a matter of buyer beware?
Right on.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the Professions and Occupations Bureau has been in consultation with the Psychologists Association and with the AG's office, and we're trying to come up with a solution in regards to this issue.
Evan to Johnsburg, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Minister of the Environment has recently acknowledged that he exempted from environmental review the Canmore Golf Resort, headed by Hal Walker, his PC constituency president, a company appropriately known as CADCO. Recently, exemptions were granted on the Three Sisters projects for lands known as Canmore 75 within the town boundaries, and also on some of the golf course lands. And there's a further development That, by the way, includes such PC cronies as Bill Dickey and Frank King. There's a third project in the area owned by Don Cormier. I'm not sure if he's a Tory or a Liberal crony these days, but we were promised, and that one's not under review because the proposal's not complete, but we were promised member for Meadowlark says he's not a New Democrat. You bet he's not.
You guys don't believe it.
And you're not either, thank God. Anyway, we were promised a comprehensive review, but it seems there's a lot of holes involved in this review, and I'm wondering if the Minister of the Environment is not concerned with everything that's happened in the last 3 years, that this sort of half-baked piecemeal approach will result in numerous lawsuits and possibly another federal environmental review at the end of the day.
No, Speaker, I'm not concerned at all. I think that we have put in place a process that is as pure as it can possibly be, and that's the Natural Resources Conservation Board. It's an exceptionally good process. With respect to the Canmore Alpine development, Mr. Speaker, I think I've got to set the record straight. The honourable member for Edmonton Jasper Place is talking about a fine gentleman, one of the finest gentlemen to walk the face of the earth, which is a lot more than I can say for this individual.
Sooner or later, he's going to have to decide whether he represents his PC president or the people of Alberta. He's going to have to make that decision. But I don't know how you can call it a pure process when this project's exempted, half of that one's exempted, that one's not included. And public hearings on this Three Sisters project, as well as the Can Alta project, headed by another group of Tories, Norm Kimball and Jackie Parker, among others, will proceed in June without any representation from downstream water users in the city of Calgary or a group of people in Canmore who are concerned about coal mines under the ground there which may subside. And in view of the fact that these decisions on intervenor funding were made by the NRCB in conflict with the previous rulings in the Swan Hills case, I would like to ask the Minister if he's prepared to discuss with the chair of the NRCB what criteria are being used to make intervenor funding decisions, or is he bent on a quick approval process regardless?
Yeah, good question.
The NRCB, as the honourable member well knows, is a quasi-judicial body that has the authority to adjudicate intervenor funding. With respect to the Can Alta proposal, that has been advertised for an NRCB hearing. With respect to Three Sisters, that is going before the Natural Resources Conservation Board. With respect to Canmore Alpine Development, that project was initiated in 1986. 1986, long before the NRCB was a notion. So the proponent played by all the rules of the day. This member would have that proponent go back and be subjected to rules that were put in place long after he received all the permits and the necessary regulatory paper approvals that were required at that time.
Shame on you guys. Edmonton Meadowlark.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Swan Hills joint venture with Bovar Inc. has guaranteed a 12 to 16% profit to Bovar and has cost Albertans $171 million, Mr. Speaker, since 1985. Why did the Minister of the Environment fail to invoke the provision in the agreement that the terms and conditions of the agreement with Bovar, and I quote, shall, Mr. Speaker, not maybe, not perhaps, but shall be subject to review on or about June 30th of 1989. Where's the review?
Obviously, the honourable member, as usual, wasn't listening when I answered a similar question in this House about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and I said that that matter has now been put to a review. It's under review as we speak.
Speaker, the same agreement calls for a review of the guaranteed profit. That's provided. That review is provided for in June 1989 as well. Has the minister provided for that review? If so, If not, why not?
In light of the proposed expansion, which, by the way, was reviewed by the Natural Resources Conservation Board in a full and complete and very intensive public process, as a result of that expansion, the whole contract with respect to Bobar is under review.
Overbar.
Mr. Speaker, concern was expressed yesterday in this House by the member from Edmonton Belmont, I believe, over the design capacity and the actual number of inmates at the Edmonton Remand Center. Comments were also made by center staff regarding the shortage of permanent staff trained to adequately deal with that situation. To the Solicitor General, is he concerned about the serious nature of these comments?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I have visited the Edmonton Remand Center. It is suffice to say that it's a very, very busy place. And I am impressed with the ability of the staff and correctional officers to cope with this, and I'm very concerned about their workload, and we are very looking into that at the moment.
Well, Mr. Speaker, it's my understanding that there have been some discussions among management, staff, and AUP. Could the Minister please explain what the results of those meetings, those discussions have been?
Mr. Speaker, the discussions that took place revolved around the use of casual employees in permanent positions. And as a result of downsizing, and in order to ensure that sufficient vacant permanent positions are available to place permanent employees that are impacted by the downsizing, there has been a freeze on the recruitment of permanent employees. This placement process is currently underway and should be completed shortly. And once it is completed, I will authorize the recruitment to all permanent frontline correctional officers, living unit officers, probation officers, and youth worker positions. These positions, which are currently covered off by wage or casual positions, are involved with the direct management and control of offenders, and as it involves public and staff safety, these positions are not subject to government staffing freezes at the present time.
Calgary Mountain View.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When you factor in all the costs that the government is paying on their lease for office space in the Olympia and York Centre in downtown Edmonton, you find they're paying in the order of $24 per square foot. However, a recent rental survey of the Edmonton market, Mr. Speaker, indicates the government should be expected to pay no more than $12 to $14 per square foot for that space instead. This means that this government could be paying a premium of as much as $12 per square foot for that space. A premium of only $10 per square foot would mean the taxpayers are paying $4.2 million more than they have to for that space in the Olympia and York Centre. I'd like to ask the Minister, Mr. Speaker, will he tell us why the taxpayers are being asked to pay at least $4.2 million more than they have to?
To help out the...
Mr. Speaker, on page 479 of Alberta Hansard, dated April 24, 1992, I responded to that question, and I indicated that we were paying essentially $8.75 per square foot. Mr. Speaker, and I outlined the half a dozen parameters that went into the lease, Mr. Speaker, and those figures that I provided in this Legislative Assembly last Friday are indeed correct figures, Mr. Speaker, and I'll repeat them again today.
Well, read it to
Mr.
him again,
Speaker.
Ken. He didn't hear it the first time.
Well, when you include all the costs, Mr. Speaker, it is $24 a square foot. This Olympia and York lease deal was originally done with a good friend of the Premier's, Mr. Speaker, in secret, behind closed doors. The lease was let without public tender, and to add insult to injury, the government has steadfastly refused to make the lease public. I'd like to ask, Mr. Speaker, given that the taxpayers deserve more than a $4.2 million wastage of their money, will the Minister turn all the documentation over to the Auditor General Ask him to do a special value for money audit of this lease and make all the documentation and the Auditor General's results public.
Mr. Speaker, in this assembly, I have indicated on several occasions now what the general parameters of this release, this particular lease are. Mr. Speaker, I've also pointed out what the confirmation figures are. I've also indicated that on the order paper there will be a series of questions with respect to the O&Y leases that will be brought up during this session of the legislature, Mr. Speaker. I've also indicated, Mr. Speaker, that I'd be very pleased to appear before the Public Accounts Committee of this particular assembly, a Public Accounts Committee, Mr. Speaker, that indeed is chaired by a member of the NDP caucus. I've indicated I'd be very happy to do that, as I indicated last year and the year before, Mr. Speaker. And I've also indicated, Mr. Speaker, that the estimates of the Department of Public Works Supply and Services will be forthcoming. And, Mr. Speaker, it even is a provision for the NDP to designate a particular department to estimates for a Wednesday of a particular week. And if the NDP would like to invite me to come before this assembly on a Wednesday when they would designate, I would be delighted to do it, Mr. Speaker. And I would be delighted, Mr. Speaker, to deal with all the concerns and the questions, Mr. Speaker. The NDP needn't hide behind fantasy, Mr. Speaker. They simply ask the question and I will respond.
Edmonton Goldbar.
Mr. Speaker, the decision to make Albertans seek prior approval for out-of-country drug treatment is an understandable move given the rising costs. The committee responsible, however, has refused prior approval for 4 out of 5 applicants with no explanation given. My questions are to the Minister of Health. Will the Minister please intervene to ensure that applicants are given a full explanation as to why their request was refused?
Mr. Speaker, the whole purpose of setting up a prior approval mechanism before U.S. treatment was done, perhaps as a matter of course, was to ensure that we exhausted treatment options in Alberta first, in Canada second, before U.S. treatment was looked at as an alternative. The people that serve on this committee I have the highest regard for, including 3 members of the public who have a very good experience with issues of substance addictions. However, for the minister to intervene in the process, I think would be inappropriate at this point. What we have seen, as the honourable member has indicated, is that the committee has to date reviewed 5 applications. 1 was approved, and 4 have been asked for some additional information or have received advice from the committee to look more closely at Alberta and Canadian options. I think the process is the appropriate one.
Mr. Speaker, yes, I too have high regard for the members of the committee, but Albertans, Mr. Speaker, need to be served. Will the minister, however, instruct the committee or place in their mandate the requirement that unsuccessful applicants must be given a list of alternative centres that are covered under Alberta Health Care?
I think it's a very useful suggestion, Mr. Speaker. Certainly it is the purpose of the committee to ensure that those options are evident to the individual before the U.S. alternative is chosen, but I think it's a useful suggestion and one that I would be pleased to pass on to the committee.
Bish.
Mr. Speaker, my question today is to the Honourable Minister of Health. We all know that we in Alberta have the best health care system in North America, even in northern isolated communities. The health and the health care system has improved drastically in the past 20 years or so. Mr. Speaker, we also know that the health care budget this year is over $3.5 billion. And we all know that we need to look at innovative ways of streamlining our healthcare costs. Mr. Speaker, my question to the Honourable Minister is, in light of the fact that the cost of providing healthcare to Albertans is rising, does the Minister foresee an expanded role for nurse practitioners in order to reduce costs in Alberta?
Mr. Speaker, I do see an expanded role for nurses and other health providers in the future. It's not only cost that drives us towards this decision, it's ensuring that we utilize the skills of our professionals in the highest valued way that we possibly can, including those of physicians, including those to recognize the very special training that nurses have in our province. It really comes down to the issue of better use of what we have as opposed to an add-on, but I certainly, in summary, believe that we can see an expanded role for nurses.
Mr. Speaker, my supplement to the Honourable Minister is we all know that in the past we've had problems in attracting sufficient number of physicians to northern communities. Could the Minister see an expanded role for the nurse practitioners to assume greater responsibility for services in northern communities?
Well, I think we need to look at the special needs of the northern communities, Mr. Speaker, and ensure that there is reasonable access to health services. Nurse practitioners are one option, and certainly an option that many of the MLAs who represent northern constituencies in this Assembly have spoken to me about. We are looking within health professions, including actions through the Alberta Association of Registered Nurses, the Alberta Medical Association, at some less restrictive professional legislation to match the new advances of professionals and technology. And certainly I hope that complementing that, our role statement process as we look at the role of the existing infrastructure in Alberta, we will see an expanded role for professionals and institutions.
Beverly.
Speaker, the Treasurer's ill-advised decision to steal money from local authorities of Alberta continues to have ramifications.
Word steal and think of something else.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Basically, the Treasurer's ill-advised decision to skim money from the local authorities of Alberta continues
Vert or something.
Continues to have ramifications, Mr. Speaker. Today we have learned that the cities are considering suing the provincial government for the money the taxpayers pay to them. Even the AUMA, including towns and villages, support the repayment of the monies to local authorities who generated these funds. To the Minister of Municipal Affairs, Mr. Speaker, given that the Municipal Financing Corporation says or states that services belong to local authorities, not to the provincial government, how can the Minister justify the provincial treasurer grabbing the surplus when it clearly doesn't belong to the provincial government?
Mr. Speaker, I'm not entirely sure, Mr. Speaker, that the Minister of Municipal Affairs has to justify anything that the provincial treasurer is perceived as doing. However, Mr. Speaker, of that amount, of course, it permitted us to distribute to the municipalities as of next month or early June or in June, $200 million unconditionally to the municipalities of this province. And that is in fact being done. We are complying with our promise in the AMPLE program of distributing $500 million, and we are collapsing the time in which it is distributed, and they will receive $200 million for their unconditional use this year.
Good answer. Mr. Speaker, the Auditor General has always listed the Municipal Financing Corporation surplus, restricted profits, equities in the provincial financial statements. This means that the money does not belong to the province, it belongs to local authorities. Given this fact, how can a minister stand idly by and refuse to defend the municipalities' positions while money that belongs to local authorities is transferred to the provincial coffers?
Mr. Speaker, I think it should be clearly understood that what has happened here, of course, has resulted in a situation whereby our two major cities believe incorrectly that they have been shortchanged. But if in fact the distribution had been made in accordance with the method they would like to have seen it made, then every municipality other than the two cities would have received less than what was done. I have a responsibility toward all municipalities in this province, not merely to the two major ones.
Might we revert to the introduction of special guests? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Minister of Health. Order, please.
Mr. Speaker, I provided a very fine introduction, I thought, of some visitors to our assembly from the Linwood School, accompanied by their teacher, Mrs. Overend, and the parent helpers who I had named. Unfortunately, they weren't in the assembly when I introduced them, so I would ask them that now that they have arrived, if they would receive the warm welcome of the members of the assembly.
Special guests? West Yellowhead, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the galleries today, we have some very well-learned children from the town of Hinton, 54 students with their parents and teachers. We have Mrs. Louise Tunke, Mrs. Eileen Samuelson, Mrs. Velma Armani, Mrs. Judy Grinnell, Mrs. Eric and Bondi Kovacs, and Mrs. Nancy Gould, along with Nicholas Kovacs on the far left. I would like them to stand and receive the warm welcome of the legislature.